All right, we're talking today with Bob Barker of Six Lakes, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of Grand Valley State University. Mr. Barker, can you begin by telling us a little bit about your own family background? Where were you born, for instance?
I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan,
And what year?
1926.
Okay, and what did your family do? What did your
Well,
father do for a living?
my dad was a barber and my mother was a beautician.
Mm-hmm. And then did you live in Grand Rapids then and through high school, or did you go somewhere else?
I was 2 years old and we moved to Rockford, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved from there to Lakeview, Michigan.
And why was your family moving?
Well, my father died when I was 7, and so my mother, my grandmother, we all moved to Lakeview.
Okay, and why did you go there?
Well, they had relatives there before, and they lived there one other time, so I guess they figured they'd go back where they originally started. So.
Okay. Now, then did you go to high school in Lakeview? Was that?
Yes, I went to Lakeview I was in Lakeview for 13 years until I went into service.
Okay. Now, you were still in school when the war began. Do you remember hearing about Pearl Harbor?
Oh yeah, I was in Grand Rapids at that time, and my dad, and then we was over to my uncle's place, and we heard it on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And did you think the war would last long enough for you to get into it?
well, I didn't think so at that time because I was only 16 and didn't think too much about it at that time.
Okay. Now, how long was it after you finished high school that you got drafted?
Well, let's see. I was out of high school, probably 16 or so. I think it was about 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And then what did you do between the time you stopped high school and when you were drafted? And did you have a job at that point?
Well, I did move back to Grand Rapids, and I got a job working at General Motors,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked there for 32 years and retired from there.
Okay. But before you were drafted, were you working down there, or is that... So what I'm asking is, did you go right from high school into the Army, or did you have some time in between?
No, I had some time in between.
Mm-hmm.
We were just young and tearing around till I was drafted. And
Okay. And then when did they draft you? Was it 44 or...
yeah, I think it was 1944 I was drafted.
And then where did you go? Where was the first place you went when you got drafted?
I went to Fort McClellan, Alabama. Took 17 weeks of basic there.
Mm-hmm.
Then went from there to Gaboy, Texas, to 13th Armored Division.
All right. Well, let's go back to basic training a little bit. What kind of things did they have you do in basic training?
Well, it was a straight infantry basic, and it was all, we fired all the different kinds of machine guns and mortars and everything like that.
Okay. What were the drill sergeants like?
They weren't too bad. We had one old guy there. He was going to retire right after that basic training. When we got done, he was retiring at that time. He was a pretty good fellow. He was a buck sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
But they were pretty nice compared to a lot of other ones that were.
Yeah. Did they make you do a lot of hiking and marching around and that kind of thing?
Well, towards the end of the training there, we had a 20-mile hike, and that was probably the hardest part of it all. It was Alabama was pretty hot and humid down there, and I wasn't used to that kind of weather, but we got through it all right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, at that point, did you have any kind of specialized assignment yet, or were you just a regular infantryman at that point?
No, just a regular infantryman at that time.
Okay. And then when you were there in basic training, did you get any time to go off the base and in the
We
town
had
or anything like that?
weekend passes, and most of the time we didn't go on furlough at that time. They wouldn't let you go.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything to do off the base?
Well, we went into town and maybe had a couple of beers or maybe eat a little ice cream cone on the side.
Mm-hmm. Was it just a small town there, or was there a larger town, or where in Alabama is this?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was, can't think of the name of that town right offhand. It wasn't a real big town, but we got on the buses and it didn't cost us anything.
Mm-hmm.
They'd take us into town and bring us back to camp. So.
Okay. Then after your basic training, do you know about when it was that you then get sent off to Texas? And what time of year? Or?
Well, we had 9 days delay en route from there to back to Lakeview, and then we had to be in Texas after that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty nice. Got in a regular outfit. That was a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
You get bad weather, raining or something like that, you didn't have to go outside to do any training, and that was kind of nice.
So you only trained in good weather?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
Might not be too good practice for war, though.
They didn't want to get us sick or something, so we couldn't do our job.
Okay. Now, tell us about the unit that you were assigned to. The 13th Armored, or what was that? Or maybe what was your job within that unit?
Well, we just had a regular training, marching, and we went out and out in the field, different training out there, and we didn't really do too much. And it was in half track, so we rode out there, and they'd just maybe park for half a day or a day, and then I don't know. I guess the rest of the guys were just doing most of the training,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't real hard.
Okay. Now, at this point, were you a rifleman? Was that your?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was a rifleman, and
Were you trained on other weapons too?
yeah, we trained with everything. Had machine guns, mortars, and flamethrowers. We did all the stuff that straight infantry would do.
Mm-hmm. And how many men would be in a squad in a half track?
That was about 6 of us in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you normally take all your stuff with you in the half track and go from one place to
Yeah,
another?
we had a backpack, and we took those with us. You see these guys today with all them big packs on their back, and you wonder how they could do any fighting with all that weight carrying that around.
Well, some of it's lighter than it used to be, but
Yeah.
yeah, still a lot. Okay. Now, what part of Texas were you based in?
Well, I was up in the Panhandle,
Mm-hmm.
and the weather was nice out there. It was a lot like Michigan weather at that time, and I liked it out there. We had a lot of fun, did a lot of training, but it really wasn't bad at all.
Now, did you have people training you there who already had combat experience in Europe at that point?
I couldn't say. I don't know. They were well, the officers, I don't know. They didn't. I can't remember any ones that were in the war before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was any.
Okay. Now, about how long were you in Texas?
Let's see. They when we got through with basic training, anybody under 18, they didn't go overseas. But all of them that was over 18, they all shipped them overseas right away. So that's why we went in a different outfit.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then when did you go overseas?
I don't know how long we were in Texas. We were there quite a while, but I must have been was probably another 7 or 8 months, because I was at least 19. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to go. I mean, they don't ship you out unless you're at least 19.
Okay. Now, are you, let's see, then, well, when did you ship out? I mean, in terms of what year or what month or?
Well, I think it was 1944, and it must have been the winter time because we got off the boat in La Havre, France. It was snowing pretty good at that time. And
Tell me about the trip across the Atlantic. I mean, had you ever been on an ocean trip before?
oh no, I'll tell you, it was pretty rough for some of them because they were throwing up and everything else, and they got pretty sick. But I lived on the lake, and I guess I was used to being out in the boat a lot, and it didn't bother me too much. And
What kind of ship did they have you on?
well, I really can't think of the name of that. It was like a troop transport, but that's funny, I can't think
Well,
of it.
was it an old ship, or was it one that you think they probably built during the war, like a Victory ship or something like that?
I don't think it was it wasn't very new because they kept shipping guys over there, but they probably come back and get another bunch of guys and take them over there. That's probably all they did.
Did you travel with a convoy? Were there a lot of other ships with you?
Oh man, there was all kind of, everywhere you looked there was boats all over the place. Yeah,
And what kind of weather did you have going across?
it was pretty nice. Guys are laying on the deck, and they were come on the loudspeaker over there. They give us some books on how to speak French and everything. And just before we got over La Havre there was we thought there was some depth charges going off or something, and but I guess it wasn't. We got over there all right.
Okay. And then, okay, you said you got to Lavra and it was snowing or cold or that kind of thing. You think
Yeah.
it was maybe December or January or?
Probably November, December, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you know if the Battle of the Bulge had started yet?
We got over there just before the Battle of the Bulge, and
Okay. So
we
you,
heard about it.
okay, so you get so that's probably then late November, early December, somewhere
Yeah,
in there you get
I
there.
think so.
Once you landed at Havre, now were you with your division or had you been pulled out of the 13th Armored and reassigned to something else?
No, we was still all together yet.
And then where did they send you once you got to France?
Well, they loaded us on trucks, and we went to some small town over there. We stayed in the barns for must have been 2 or 3 weeks anyway, or longer, before we got shipped out to our first battle.
Okay, and then can you describe that for us? What they're shipping you out to battle? What are they telling you? What do you see?
Well, they didn't really tell us much of anything, I guess. They just give you orders to load up and away you go. But I was riding in half tracks, and I think the forward units did most of the fighting and everything, and we come in behind and sort of cleaned everything up.
Okay, well, what was there to clean up? I mean, what kinds of things did you have to do at that point?
Well, we was marching along one day, and all at once all these prisoners come down, running down off the hills with their hands up in the air, and we took quite a few prisoners that day. They just got tired of fighting, I guess, and wanted to give up. So.
Now, were you in Germany by then?
Yes, it was in Germany, yeah.
Had you crossed the Rhine River, or were you still in the western part?
Well, one time we tried to get across the Rhine. We were supposed to go across the Rhine and get on the take a little town over there, and take that over. But I tell you, that Rhine's a mighty big river, and somehow or other we had to give up because we couldn't find any way to get over there.
Okay, so at this point, when you meet these fellows and they're surrendering, you're still kind of in the western part of Germany then.
Yeah, I believe so.
What did the German prisoners look like? I mean, how old were they? What condition were they in?
Well, they were mostly older guys and young kids, and they had a funny smell to them. But they were pretty nice. I mean, they got tired of fighting too. Just wanted to get it over with, I guess.
And then did your unit have to herd them backward, or did you just wave them
Yeah,
along?
we took them back to camp, and somebody else took over there
Mm-hmm.
and took them back where they keep all the prisoners at.
Okay. And then after that happened, then what happened next? Or where'd you go, or what did you do next?
Well, we did a lot of traveling around in half tracks, and we went from about one end of Germany to the other. I guess they had to, for some reason or other, some outfit run out of gas. I guess we had to deliver some gas up to them, and we did a lot of riding in half tracks.
Mm-hmm. Now, as you're going back and forth through Germany, did you have much contact with the civilian population, or do you see much of them?
Yeah, the French, they were pretty nice and friendly, and but it seemed like they were behind time. They used cows to plow where they had wooden plow. One wooden plows, and looked kind of strange plowing with cows like that. In Germany, they were seemed like they were more modern.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the Germans probably took most of the vehicles and a lot of the metal out of France anyway.
I think so.
But and so that they were still using that. Did you deal much with any of the German people, or just look at them out of the half track?
I didn't have much to do with the German people. They were ones that didn't like you very well.
Okay.
They probably just shoot you, look at you,
And then, as you're moving across Germany, were you still encountering opposition? Were there still Germans fighting and causing trouble for you?
seemed like there was always something going on. Somebody shooting at you, or put some artillery over your way, and Germans, they built the Siegfried Land over there, and that was really something to see. All these big cement pillars, they built them to keep the tanks from coming through there.
Mm-hmm.
But they did break through in one place, and they got through there anyhow, so that was really something to see, I'll tell you.
So, but by the time your unit got there, somebody else had gone first.
Yeah,
right?
they'd gone through there already, so.
That was probably a good thing. So you can see what it looked like, but didn't have to fight through it.
Yeah, that was really something.
Okay. Now, were you mostly dealing with sort of individual snipers or small units, or were you in some larger fights as well?
Well, I was, they always had a unit ahead of us, the tanks and everything went ahead of us,
Mm-hmm.
probably artillery and everything. And we kind of come in towards the end,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, we took a few prisoners here and there.
How close did you get to getting hit by German fire?
Well, I'll tell you, they had some artillery there one night coming in, and we had to dig in, and the shrapnel was flying all over the place. And I didn't have too much trouble with snipers, but one of my buddies got killed with a sniper, so there was always somebody out to get you, it seemed like.
Okay. Now, when you're traveling through Germany at this point, kind of very last couple of months of the war, where would you normally sleep? Did you go into the towns and buildings, or did you just camp out, or what?
Well, any house that was empty, or we stayed in some pretty good. We was in it was a German, where they trained Germans there at one time. It was a great big place, and we stayed in there, and I remember one night I slept in the bathtub there in one of them German house. But you could, we'd stop and get in any empty house that was, they had, I think they had places already ahead of time that they knew where we were going to stay, so.
Mm-hmm. Now, how good was the discipline in your unit? Did the men kind of follow the orders and behave themselves, or did some of the guys kind of steal things or pick things up as they went, or?
I always, I was always looking for stuff to. We went in some of the houses and we just kind of helped ourselves to stuff there. I had some ribbons and a couple of pistols that we got on the boat, and our duffel bags went in the down in the hold, I guess, and them sailors, they kind of went through and picked out what they wanted, and when I got my bag back, it was sort of minus a few things. But we made out a list. They were gonna pay us for it, but I never did see any money. So.
Okay. Now, do you remember some of the places that you went in Germany? Kind of areas or towns or...
Well, we went through them. There wasn't much there. Just the buildings were all destroyed. We went through a lot of towns, but we didn't stop. Just kept going, and but we did get up to the Birch's Garden, the Hiller's hideout. We went through there.
Okay. Now, how did you wind up going there? Was it just on your way to someplace else? Or?
I don't know whether some of the big brass wanted to stop there or what, but.
So what did it look like when you got there?
Well, I tell you, it was a mighty steep mountain going up there in trucks. We was in trucks that time. I don't know how we got there, but I went in Hitler's house there, and I looked out through that big picture window, and that was quite a sight to see, Alpine Alps. And then a little ways across the street there was he had a where they danced and everything in there. He had it was all knotty pine and big dance floor. It was quite an outfit there.
Was there much destruction there, or did it look like a lot of stuff had been looted, or was it still pretty much in place?
Everything was. The house was still standing there, but they had a great big tube that must have been his. In order to get out of there in case the house got blown up, and they had a guard on there, so they wouldn't let anybody down there.
Now, did you just stay there for a day or so, and then move on?
No, we wasn't there very long. I don't know why. It was just a short time, seemed like. And
well, how far east or south into Europe did you get? And did you go beyond Berchtesgaden and keep going?
no, we wasn't into Austria very far. I don't know. We took some prisoners there, 20,000, and I don't know where we went from there. I think we must have came back again, because we were just a little ways over the border.
And now, by this time, had the war ended by the time you got to Berchtesgaden? I mean, had the Germans surrendered officially, or was the war still going on?
No, the war was still going on. And, I don't know, we did a lot of traveling in them half tracks.
And do you remember hearing about the German surrender?
I'm trying to think here. Well, I think the war was still going on when we. I can't remember.
Do you remember anything about how people reacted when they found out the war was over?
Well, I was glad they were glad to see us when we come through these towns there. I don't know where all the people came from, but they were hollering, yelling, and waving flags. And
so there was sort of a change among the German people then. So before that they were kind of standoffish, and then after the surrender, then they came out.
They were there anyway, as long as there wasn't any fighting going on or any artillery or anything flying around. They was always glad to see us. So.
Because you said a little bit earlier that when you were first going into Germany, the German people kind of stayed away from you and didn't like you so much. But then by the very end of the war, that changed.
Well, I didn't see too many people over there when the fighting was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were all down in their basement or somewhere.
Okay. Now, once the war was over, or at least the German part of the war was over, did your unit have a celebration or a party or anything like that? Or were you just thinking about having to go to Japan next?
Well, we were scheduled to go to CBI, China, Burma, India, but yeah, the war was over then, and so I got out of the army then and went back home. But,
okay. Now you mentioned before the interview that you were initially with the 13th Armored Division, but at some point you were also with the 5th Infantry Division. How'd that happen?
Well, they disbanded the 13th Armored, and they changed divisions for some reason, and I think they switched over to the 5th Division.
Mm-hmm.
Then later on, they changed over to the Third Army, so that was in 3 different divisions at one time. So,
okay. Well, that would have been maybe when they had started to ship men home, but most guys had more points than you did, so you were there longer.
I think they changed over like that when I was back in the States.
Okay.
Because when I was overseas, I was still in the same outfit.
Okay, but when you were overseas, were you with the 13th Armored or with the 5th Division?
No, I was still with the 13th Armored.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Now, tell me a little bit about sort of the process of getting you back home. Were men sent out of your unit kind of one at a time or in small groups and then sent off to be shipped out, or how did that work? Or did the whole unit go at once in the end?
They had a place, they had a name for it, different camp or something, and we were all, ones that were going back home were sent there, and we stayed there maybe for a day or so before they loaded us back on the boat.
Were they camps that were named after cigarette brands or things like
Yeah,
that, like
I think,
Camp Lucky Strike and
Gold and Lucky Strike, and yeah.
Yeah, those are the transit camps.
Yeah.
Okay. And Rod La Havre. Okay, so then, how was the trip back? Was that any different from the trip over?
I can't remember too much coming home, but I know at one time there was a great big mine floating around out there, and I thought it was going to hit the boat, the ship. And I thought it was funny nobody was doing anything about it. But before it got too close, they did fire a machine gun at it. It didn't blow up, so. But that was quite a big mine when you see them up close. So.
And then when you got back to the States, where did you land? Were you in Virginia or New York?
We got Camp St. Patrick Henry, and they give us a big steak dinner and milk and give us the whole works. So that was kind of nice.
And then did you get to go back home after that?
Yeah, I think I surely went home shortly after that.
Now, once you did get back to Michigan again, what did you do?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I re-enlisted one time before my time was up. I re-enlisted in the regular army for another year because I wanted to get home for Christmas and New Year.
So then, when actually did you get out of the army? Would have been.
I think it was 1946 sometime.
Okay. And was it 1946 that you finally got to go home? Or did you get a leave in between once you were back in the States?
I think it was 1946 because after I was out of oil, I remember I got married, so that was in 1946. So.
Okay. And then, let's see, then you got home and then did you go to work for General Motors at that point? Was that what you did after you got back?
Not right away. I was out of work for a while, and we was riding around one day and come to this big factory, and we went in, put an application in, and got a job there. So I worked there for 32 years. So.
Okay. And what town was that factory in?
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay. All right. Now, if you look back on it now, how do you think your time in the service maybe kind of affected you as a person, either just who you are or how you look at things or see the world?
Well, I met a lot of good friends. They're just like one big family, you know. And I don't know, I guess it was probably a lot of good exercise, a lot of walking and training, and I had a lot of good times though. I met a lot of friends. And
No, in the time when you were in Europe, were you mostly with the same squad and the same group of men through that?
yeah, we were all the same one, yeah.
And do you remember where those guys were from? Or anything much about them now?
Oh boy, they was from all over, you know, Chicago and from all different states, yeah. In fact, I went home with a guy to meet his mother and them in Chicago and stayed overnight one time on a pass, and that was kind of nice. He took me down to the bar where I used to go and had a couple of beers down there, and that was kind of nice.
All right. Are there any other particular events or things from your time in the service that kind of stick with you or you remember or that come back a lot?
There probably was at the time. I can't think of it offhand. Well, I tell you, we did go to Cincinnati one time and paraded through there, and we stayed in the racetrack. The river's down the racetrack there. We were camped out in the middle of there for about 3 days.
So you did a Victory Day parade then, or?
I don't know what that parade was for, but
Yeah. So when you were back in this, when you came back to the States, you had gone to Fort Patrick Henry, but your enlistment was not up yet. Where were you based after that? Was that in Cincinnati or Nashville or around in there somewhere?
boy, I really can't think of where that was at. I don't know where we went from there, to tell you the truth.
Because you've got pictures of our newspaper things. Some of it's from Nashville. If you were in Nashville and you were in Cincinnati, you might have been in Fort Knox, Kentucky, or someplace like that. But
Well, we did stop there one time in Fort Knox. That was tank division there. Yeah. But it was just for a short time on our way to Cincinnati, I believe.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
All right. There we go.